5, 4, 3.
Hey guys, I'm MP. I lead communications and community management, as you may already have guessed because I'm always with you. And I want to introduce our midterm Kanban goals today. Well, basically, some months have passed since our mainnet launch. We had 2 main releases, a few patches out, and we have been focusing as well on the future of Golem. Today we're ready to share our midterm goals with you in the shape of a Kanban, as the Kanban that we had for Brass before. So you have seen what happens in the outside of Golem, in the GitHub, in our communities, but not in the inside. And the team has decided that in order to work better, we should split into divisions and target different roadmap milestones. Still, we're working together and fully in communication towards the same goal, but in a more holistic manner. Before we start, I'll give you a bit of the overview of this live stream. Basically, we will start by presentations by our team members here, Marek and Vigit, our CTO, and Alexandra, our co-founder. And then we will go to an AMA that some community members have helped moderate on Reddit. And we will also have open our roadmap questions chat room on Rocket Chat. So we look forward for more questions as well. So now let's get to it. Marek is going to talk about the future of Brass. Doesn't feel so easy. Put here.
Okay, thank you. I'm Marek, and I'm going to talk a bit about Brass. So basically, we're going to maintain Brass in its current state and actually fix the upcoming and existing issues and introduce some new but planned features so far. The next big thing that's coming to Brass is the release of the consent service on mainnet. And that's what we're excited about. What else to say? Brass is going to be the base for all the new use cases that we're going to introduce, but more about that later on. We're of course not abandoning the UX UI department, and we're going to improve the installation process, the CLI and the graphical user interface. So our users can feel more comfortable with using Golem. From the new features, we're going to introduce GPU mining. It's a feature that we're working together. The Brass team is collaborating with the Unlimited team to deliver this feature. It's basically something that your Golem node can do when it's idle. It can mine some cryptocurrency for you. Of course, it's optional. So the rest of the changes regard consents. So we're planning on improving the user interface. We're planning to show you the whole deposit history for that you placed on consent. We're going to prepare, of course, the documentation so the more technical users and everyday users can know more about the consent service and actually try to maybe develop some software integrated with the consent service. The consent service is not fully implemented, so we're still implementing some modules like the transaction signing service for consent. It's basically a separate module for consents to store their private Ethereum keys and delegate transaction signing to. We're also implementing the rest of the use cases regarding payments and regarding task verification. So basically, if either side of the computation has some issues, they can go to the consent service and get their issue resolved. Naturally, we're going to audit the service. We're going to identify and fix the security vulnerabilities we can find, and want to check if the specification, if our current implementation we were going to verify the conformance of our current implementation with our specification of the constant service. And the last thing we want to do with Brass is to fully automate our tests, integration tests with constants, integration tests for constants solely, so we can rest assured that that our components are working properly. So, thank you.
Cool. So basically, as you may be able to see, Brass is not only about Blender or about rendering CGI, but it has much more capabilities. So Vig is gonna tell them to us.
Yeah. Okay. So as you can see, we've introduced a CGI theme to the picture because we started Brass as a Golem solution for rendering only. So Golem is not for rendering only. We started with rendering because we know rendering, we know how to tackle it, how to deal with it, and at the same time we were able to develop the core components of Golem and develop the integration so that we can see what should be exposed from the core technology and how software development from outside of Golem looks like in terms of integrating with Golem. So this is why we choose Blender, because it's open source. We were able to see how it works internally. But Blender is only the first step here. So rendering is important, but Golem as a whole is not about rendering, it's about general computation. But CGI team is here to develop this part of Golem, namely the CGI, not only rendering, but general CGI computations that can be run on Golem. And of course, we have a code base, existing code base that's used in Golem, and this team is devoted to developing and improving existing solutions within context of CGI and rendering in the first place. So we move towards commercial renderers. At this point, we cannot tell you exactly what renderers they are going to be, but we're going to work on commercial renderers integrations, as this part of Golem seems to be very, very important to users. Blender is open source, it proved useful. We believe that when we can add commercial renderers to the picture, it's going to be much better and much more user-friendly, and well, much more use cases rendering-wise would be able to be run on Golem. So to make it possible, we have two steps that CGI team is working on. First is compositing. It's compositing in Blender. Compositing makes it a fully production-grade solution, and Blender plugin, which would enable users from outside of Crypt or outside of Golem to simply integrate their Blender with Golem and run their tasks in the Golem network without even noticing that Golem is used anywhere in the process. This should look like this, and it is important from the commercial renderer's point of view. And as I said, the team is working on existing solutions, for example, local verification, redundant verification. Both of them are important, and both of them are very, very well developed. And in the context of trustless computation, it's important that they work as good as possible. That's why we would like to include SGX-based solutions for both local verification and redundant verifications for those points. So local verification with SGX can allow providers to verify results on their machines, and SGX can be used in redundant verifications, for example, to provide a trusted base of results that can be verified against results run on regular provider machines. But as I said, rendering is not the only direction here. Most CGI topics should be covered. For example, we would like to work on video transcoding. In this case, we would like to implement FFmpeg and digital cinema package. The second one requires more computation. FFmpeg requires quite a lot of tweaking and setting up parameters. So they are going to be implemented both on Brass and Unlimited, as Unlimited gives us quite a few additional verticals where we can run this computation in an efficient manner.
Okay,
So-
there's a follow-up question from the audience here, from the Reddit audience, of course. The question says, will the team balance efforts and resources to make rendering use case experience better while pursuing Clay, Golem, or general compute? Or will it instead leave rendering as a POC only and double down all resources on developing Golem into something with mainstream demand that can be, for example, machine learning?
Okay, so I believe that the first point here, conventional render race integration, is the answer to the first part of the question. We're definitely going to devote quite a lot of resources to make it production-ready, commercial render-based solution. So we're going to devote quite a lot of resources here. But as I said previously, Golem is a generic computational platform. So at no point we're going to favor rendering only over the generic platform. So we're going to devote quite a lot of resources, most of resources, in developing this platform.
Nice, thanks. That's really exciting. And now we're gonna pass to the number one name on Reddit as well, which is When Clay, basically.
Thanks. Now Clay. Clay aims to be a major step forward for Golem, actually. We want to improve significantly over Brass's current Brass architecture, introduce many new features. We don't want to be a single big update, we want to make it gradual and continuous. So yeah, it's going, when we implement all of those features, we can say that we have released the Clay version of Go. The most anticipated feature right now, I believe, is the GPU support. So we're working right now on GPU support. For now, it's NVIDIA only and for Linux operating systems. Basically, with that, you can use GPU for Blender rendering and CUDA applications, so it opens the door for other GPU targeted computations, some machine learning, for example. And so the next thing we're going to introduce is the SGX Graphene NG integration. So we're preparing a toolset for Docker. We're going to implement verification schemes based on SGX, and actually try to implement current use cases using SGX. We want Clay to be an open platform for outside developers, so we're working on a task development API. We're working on new computation environments. We want to provide a lot of documentation and tutorials for the new developers to create some applications that can run on top of Golem. Yeah, going back to the new computation environments, we're replacing the old Docker toolbox with Docker for Windows and Docker for Mac on those platforms. Of course, there is NVIDIA GPU support for Docker. What else? Computation directly on virtual machines and preparation of a sandboxing API to allow developers to create their own sandboxing environments and so on. The next important thing that the Clay team is going to work on is the network layer. We are working on and also researching a new implementation. We're researching the topics, but we're working on the implementation of a new network layer in Rust. It gains wide adoption in the community thanks to its speed and safety. So what we want to do with the new networking stack is to support multiple protocols, for example, reliable UDP. WebSockets are not out of the question. We want to multiplex protocols on the same port. We want to improve the node connectivity in the network. So we want to work on the not traversal scenarios and solutions, and also implement node relaying in the network. Speaking of network, we're also going to re-implement research and renew the data distribution protocol. So basically we're ditching Hyper-G for something completely new. We want to rework the discovery protocol and the RPC protocol, which is pretty important from the developer's point of view. Clay is going to bring some architectural improvements. So we want to decompose some of the parts of Golem into smaller services running in isolated processes. We want to improve task modularization, so we can have something that resembles apps even from the current implementations, current task types. We want to implement message queues for internal Golem events, so we can first of all we can manage better, we can manage them better, and we can persist the application state in an easier manner. And last but not least, we want to formalize the whole Golem platform. We want to create an abstraction, so we're going to create models for tasks, the general infrastructure, and economy. Yes.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Marek. I think that you guys will have a lot of questions because that was indeed a lot of content, and obviously you will have questions about the introduction of Rust as well. So now let's just have those questions on a new AMA or something, but let's pass to R&D, which Ola will take care of.
Okay, so the next team that is going to be created inside Golem is research and development team that is going to be led by Golem. And the purpose of this team is to push forward the state-of-the-art of algorithms and technologies and create ambitious models that can be used not only by Golem but also by other blockchain projects. First, they're going to work on SGX integrations. I know that SGX was mentioned also before in all the other modules, but it's like going to explore different ways we can use it. For sure, we can use it to protect providers, requesters' data from malicious providers, and we can use it to run additional verification, but maybe it can be also used to decentralize consent service, or maybe for something else in the Golem network. That is something that is going to be explored by the research team. The next big topic that they're going to work on is the marketplace. So that's the central component of Golem. The main economy of Golem, how to match providers with requesters. The main goal of requester is to compute the task as quickly and cheaply as possible, and the main goal for provider is to earn as much as possible. And to create a solution and algorithm that is going to fulfill both of these requirements in a way that both parties are satisfied, that's a big challenge that's going to be addressed by this team. The next topic is reputation. So basically, how to note the trust level of each node in the network, so we can detect maliciously behaving nodes quite soon and decrease their participation in the network. Several other blockchain teams are exploring this topic, but there is like no final solution that can be used in an optimized and efficient way. So let's hope that our team will be able to create something. And to make a reputation system useful, we need also better anti-Sybil solution. So Sybil attack is attack when one person or computer is creating multiple identities in the network. So that allows to run some whitewashing attacks that, like, when you have a bad reputation, you just remove your identity and create a new one. And let's hope that this new proposed anti-Sybil solution will mitigate this attack. So there is like a limit of identities that the new node is able to create. And if all of these models, or at least some of them, will succeed, then other blockchain projects will be able to use our research, our models, and use them in their own projects.
That's really promising, and I want to just note that this research and development phase of Golem is nothing like the previous research and development phase of Golem. This is actually going simultaneously with the development of Clay and Limited and whatnot. So it's not that we're interrupting Golem by any means, and this phase will be also very limited.
One more important remark is that we're not going to start this research from scratch. Like, we have this huge base of knowledge that we've already researched in the brass phase. We're just going to make it more production ready.
Great. So now for another new sorry. So now for another new introduction of our roadmap, we're going to talk about Unlimited, and it's as ambitious as the name is. So I'll leave it to speak.
Okay, so we have started with brass, as you know, and as you can see, probably see, the project comprises of a few logical components that can work together. So, for example, we have economy here, the component logical component responsible for making this marketplace, or the component responsible for trust in the network. But the backbone of this whole infrastructure is the compute component. The Golem allows you to distribute your computations, split them, send them, and then collect the results and combine them into something useful. So this compute component should be of some use, even if you don't have those two other components or other components implemented, or if you don't need them. So we analyzed requirements of data centers, render farms, and existing hardware infrastructures, and it's quite obvious that full-fledged nodes that exist in Golem, in Brass Golem right now, are not necessarily required in such setting where you have control of the infrastructure. So lightweight tailored solution should be used instead. That would be easier for the owners of the infrastructure to maintain. And having a data center, having control of the data center, means that you have established a notion of trust over your nodes. So we can strip down the logical component, well, the component of Golem, down to this bare compute component, add a bit of flavor just to make it easier to use, and this should stand for a pretty good platform, pretty decent platform that should be used for data centers. So this is what Golem Unlimited in principle is. It additionally can be used as this compute component not only in data centers, but for creating an ad hoc subnetworks when you have a group of people who simply would like to compute something over their network. They know each other, they trust each other, their trust comes from outside of the Golem network, but this way then they can build ad hoc subnetwork that can act as a Golem Unlimited network, which should work in the setting that I described. The usages here are multiple. The first and the most obvious one is a data center where you can simply distribute tasks. There exist other solutions for data centers, so this is nothing new. But at the same time, you can build these subnetworks out of computers that you trust. And the most important part from Golem perspective is that with this Golem Unlimited notion of computation, you should be able to dispatch Golem tasks from the Golem network to subnetworks to Golem Unlimited networks that exist in this large network in the data centers, which means that when you have gateways to each of the subnetwork, it can act as a separate Golem node, which simply provides much more resources. It is important because with this Golem Unlimited being built with the Golem tools and Golem developments, we should be easily able to integrate existing Golem solutions, use cases with Golem Unlimited, with maybe only a minor modification. So let's get down to points here. Well, first of all, we need to understand what architecture for data centers should be. So we're going to provide a documentation for this and probably some proof of concepts. But, well, more or less we know what they need. So we just need to make it as user-friendly as possible, not necessarily to reinvent the wheel what should be done. For example, we need developer tools, so which means that if you have a Golem Unlimited cluster, you should be able to easily add existing use cases to it or manage the tasks within the network For example, you should be able to send existing Docker images around the network without any additional effort. As I said, we are going to provide this unlimited subnetworks to Golem mine network as single gateways. So a single gateway is a computer that acts as this powerful machine with lots of resources, and the brass play integration simply stands for providing the APIs or integrations that are required to give this power to Golem Unlimited users to connect with the existing Golem network. As you know, Golem right now uses Blender, and Blender is in container, and any integration is containerized. So we first have to provide mode of containerized Docker, containerized run scheme, so that you can use Golem Unlimited just as you would like to use brass and clay later on. In this setting, we don't have to be as careful as we are in terms of securing the internet from the Docker. So right here, we would like to allow Dockers to communicate with each other, so that when you run your computation over in a Golem Unlimited setting, you should be able to build, for example, ad hoc grid, so that more classes of computation should be easily run in Golem Unlimited. Additional mode is SGX mode. You may try, if you are an owner of infrastructure, you should be easily able to run the computation, but people from outside of your render farm or data center may not really be willing to send you sensitive data. So we would like to allow them to run their computation through this gateway only on SGX nodes. The third one, not mentioned before, is a host direct mode. This mode is important because it allows you to run directly on the machine that is hosted within the cluster. So this can be used, for example, for mining. If you have GPUs, with regular Golem you have slight problem because you have to somehow interface with the GPU, and we are working on that. But if you can run it in a host direct mode, we don't have to care at all about how it is run. We can use all resources that computer has, and for example use it either for mining or for other computation. So mining is 0.7 here. It is going to be a use case that we're going to implement and allow render farms or data centers to run. It should be pretty straightforward to set up either a mining pool or connecting with an existing mining pool, or mining pool acting on its own. Or maybe more importantly, you should be able to run computations in a Golem Unlimited subnetwork with load balancing in mind. So for example, if you have a render farm, you may have your core jobs that should be prioritized all the time. And in this setting, you should be able to do this. So if you have those jobs, they should be run. But if you have idle cycles in your unlimited cluster, you should be easily able to run something on this cluster. It can be either mining, so this mining with load balancing. It can be Golem tasks that can be took from the gateway that dispatches them, and after getting them from the main Golem network. Additional points here are provisioning, which stands down for straightforward installation of software on the nodes within the network. So we have this setup. Golem Unlimited consists of nodes within the cluster, and nodes can be either worker nodes, or there may be a master node dispatching the work and workloads. So provisioning is responsible for easily updating all those worker nodes. Jobs balancing boils down to what I said with mining, so that you can prioritize jobs, both Golem jobs or other jobs within this setting. And we have also virtual cluster management, which means that at some point you should be able to control the granularity of this setting and of your cluster easily. So these management tools are going to allow you to do that. For example, this should allow you to replicate this master hub node that is responsible for resending and rescheduling tasks in the nodes in this network. And you cannot see it here, but I believe that you have noticed that SGX is present more or less on every slide here. So we believe that this technology is very, very promising. It gives quite a lot of guarantees. And as we work on both SGX integration for Golem and GrapheneNG, which is a generic computation platform based on SGX, we feel that this is something that we should really focus on and present the most efficient and the most user-friendly solutions for SGX as we can.
Okay, thank you. And now, obviously, SGX is our flagship product. We are very, very happy with the development and the research done by Golem and by Invisible Things Lab. And we're going to pass on to more developer tools and more developer reach out with Ola and the use case pipeline.
Okay, so as it was mentioned before during CGI team introduction, Golem is currently supporting Blender rendering and is going to support other renderers, but Golem is not a render farm. Golem is a solution for arbitrary computations, and Clay team is working on this task API that is going to support ability to run any code inside Golem, and to learn more how to create a good task API and also to show our user how to add their own integration. We're going to prepare some new integration for Golem, some new use cases. We focus right now on machine learning. Last year there was a proof of concept prepared with hyperparameter optimization, and we're going to develop it further and make it finally production ready. We're also exploring different ways we can introduce machine learning to Golem. The main problem with machine learning is the amount of data that usually has to be sent to train a model. So maybe we can reduce it by just sending a scene and rendering it on provider's machine. So it's like a hybrid approach combining rendering and machine learning. Maybe there are also other machine learning algorithms that we're going to explore. We also checking different industries and different use cases: scientific computation, computational chemistry, neurobiology, physical simulations. We are exploring business use cases like financial markets analysis, both for cryptocurrency and fiat stock exchange solutions. We are also trying to work on different type of task, so persistence task, which means basically services that can be later used by projects like Streamer. And one more important topic that we're going to work on is licensing and licensing framework, because we are open source project and we want to support open source software and freeware software, but also if someone has a good commercial software, he should be able to integrate with Golem and receive some money for creating this integration. So we're going to propose a new distributed licensing framework integrated with a blockchain that will give some additional money for software creators. And we're still exploring different use cases, and if someone has a good idea for a use case that can be integrated with Golem, please write to us to contact Golem Network. We will reach back to you. We'll send you some questionnaires and have some discussion, and we'll try to figure out if there is a technological fit. And if there is, we'll try to create this new integration together sooner than the Clay is ready, probably.
Okay, thanks. So basically the use case pipeline is also a commitment from us to the developer audience, and we want to hear your challenges. We want to see what you think, what you have to propose, and help you out if it's compatible with our vision. So please reach out. You have our you have all of our links, so I'm not gonna recite them here. So what you have seen now, it's our midterm goals. It's a lot of information to grasp during one meeting, but I hope that you are still with us. By all means, stay with us, because we have a really cool Q&A session now that we help source with Reddit and with our chat room that's going live now. So let's go to the first one. So Sushi TM asked at what point in the Golem future can the community actively consider the development of Golem, considering it's open source, and what tools, instructions, and support can be provided by the Golem team in order to promote this engagement? In short, will the Golem team ever allow people to contribute to the GitHub project, and would tools and instructions be provided? Hola?
Okay, so you can contribute right now. Like 90% of our code, apart from some early research, is open source, and we accept contributions, issues, pull requests from the community. Some people already have created pull requests that were accepted, so they contributed to Golem codebase. Like, we are aware that the Golem codebase is quite huge and it's difficult to just start straight away. Let's hope that with new teams we're going to have like more separated code base and maybe more repositories, so it can be easier to add something. We also are going to introduce better labeling and some up for grabs issues in the repository.
So this question comes from PSV Jasper99, and it's quite long. Thank you, Jasper. So imagine there are a few large centers that could, in theory, gain a majority of nodes or the majority of influence in the marketplace. Has Golem identified any risk factors regarding market manipulation? What impact could this have, and what, if anything, could be done to minimize risk for users? How will Golem balance the fact that demand and supply can be manipulated, and what can Golem do to prevent large players from making price agreements?
Okay, so there are like 2 points here. The first one, that are going to be many Golem use cases with different requirements. Some of them will require a lot of memory, some of them will require more disk space or a better network connections, so it's difficult to create just one perfect Golem machine that can satisfy every task and be perfect for every task in the network. So maybe there will be some computers that will be perfect for some use cases, but probably not for all of them in the Golem network. And the second factor is how this marketplace that is going to be researched by our R&D team, how it's going to be finally implemented. They're trying to make sure that there is like a balance between working with nodes with high reputation that are already well known in the network, and like the need of exploring new providers coming to the network with the potentially new better prices and better reliability.
Okay, so another one from Jasper here. Let's see who can take it, maybe two of the guys. In the past, many technological inventions we use today, consider the microwave, for instance, were meant for a different target group than the designers had in mind, protected users. By the way, does anyone know what's the deal with the microwave? I don't know. Well, I'll research. Has the view on the protected users after Brass launch stayed the same, or it has altered? And has any additional research been done on this? I think they're looking at you.
Okay.
Maybe I can take it again and then give voice to guys. So, yeah, like we take into account the possibility that the use cases that we're thinking about right now, like rendering, machine learning, scientific computations, are not going to be the main use cases for Golem, and someone will create something that will surprise us and be like the main use case for Golem. But that's like no problem, I think.
Yeah.
And also we are planning to increase our business team to get more business analytics to just identify those niches where we can create new use cases for Golem that can be like this surprising new thing that will be.
Yeah, and please keep in mind that Golem is developed as a platform for generic computation, so use cases are right now useful for us because we learn how to allow software developers to integrate with Golem, but ultimately we would like to software developers to build on top of Golem, and we should not provide this sort of development.
Nice. I think it also adds to the fact that our ultimate goal is not to run Golem, but Golem to run by itself, right?
Yes.
So Don Draper VC asks, will the team balance efforts and resources to make the rendering use case experience better while pursuing Clay, Golem, and general compute, or will it instead leave rendering as a POC only and double down on all resources on developing Golem into something more mainstream demand for? So we already.
It seems as this the question.
Yeah, this is the fault of the production team actually. So we will skip it because we answered this. And this is live stream. So one more, I believe that this is for Alexandra as well, and it's the new roadmap subject to change. How strictly will the team follow this roadmap, and will the team still make hard deadlines for releases or software updates?
Okay, so the answer is for the first question, probably, but we'll try to do our best to deliver things that we promised in this roadmap this year. Keep in mind that in our white paper we still have this bigger vision for the next versions of Golem that are like stone and iron, and they're still there. And like, there are still some open questions that maybe we won't be able to introduce everything, but let's hope that we will do our best.
Yeah. Keep in mind, this is a midterm goals roadmap plan. It doesn't deprecate neither the white paper or the original roadmap, and we will clarify that in a blog post that's coming either tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. So, one from Decker 3D, one of our most active users here, and it's, what's your opinion on the state of AMD's attempts at an SGX-like functionality? I believe this is for Bigot. Any news on the horizon or of something like Graphing NG for AMD?
Well, so AMD's technology is SEM and SEV, and this technology is very promising. We believe that at some point we should be able to integrate with this technology. But right now, Intel SGX brings us the most promising technology so far. So we would like to focus on it, especially as Graphene NG is only for the SGX. So SGX and SEV are technologies that can be used to run computations in a, more or less trusted way. But to run arbitrary computation means graphing, and there is no such thing for AMD so far.
Cool. So we also have an open chat room. It's hashtag roadmap questions. So maybe we have some questions from there. Do we have some questions from there? Yeah, I'm asking you, you're following it.
Okay, so the first question is whether the introduction of unlimited means that we will means that the general roadmap for Golem is obsolete now?
Of course not. It's not obsolete. So, as Alexander said, we stick to the roadmap. And Unlimited is an additional product that arose from the analytics that we made, and it is there to be a complementary product for Golem or a standalone product for anyone who would like to use it within render farm or a controlled hardware environment. So the most important part from our side is that this way render farms or data centers would be able to interact with Golem easily, instead of configuring each and every single node with the regular Golem software.
Cool. So another question from Reddit, from Adam Luke 12. It was previously mentioned that additional features for the GNT could be added in the future. Are you able to share any information about recent developments or potential future plans regarding these?
So I will take that one. So basically, recently we've introduced the consent service. So basically, we can use GNT to deposit some of the GNT, for example. In the past, we thought about solutions on, for example, pushing the tasks to the network, assigning providers on the blockchain, directly on the blockchain. We had ideas that solved conflicts on the network directly on blockchain, and we had ideas that we could perform partial result verification on blockchain directly, but it appeared to be too expensive. So we have to keep in mind the gas costs and the transaction rates that are currently possible in the Ethereum network. Of course, the situation is going to get better with Shazar, for example.
Yeah, and there's also some interesting EIP in the horizon. That's the one of token abstraction, which means that you will be able to pay for gas with tokens that we are really hoping pushes and falls through. So, Don Draper VC again. Can you tell us more about hardware requirements for the upcoming GPU support? For instance, many multi-GPU setups do not utilize the full X16 bus speed for all cards. Would this be an issue?
The first implementation of GPU support is going to support a single card only, but we're not going to stop there. So basically, for hardware limitations or requirements, it's NVIDIA. It has to be running on a Linux system, and for now it's only a single card. In the future, when we flesh out the bugs and make the whole solution stable, we will introduce the CLI interface, the graphical user interface for multiple graphic cards.
Cool. One from Ethereum CPW, and before this I would like to thank him, Jasper, and Bosi25, who helped curate the questions and did all the hard work for us. This couldn't be possible without you guys because we've been busy organizing all of these. So this is for Vigit, and it's again about SGX. In your recent blog post, the one on computation's life cycle on Golem's perspective, you stated that there is no way to force an SGX provider to carry out a computation in an efficient manner. Would this be an issue with Golem as providers are only paid when they complete a subtask?
So in Brass right now, it really is this way, so that provider is paid for a subtask only once it's finished, and this requester sets up the timeout after which the subtask is invalid and it's not accepted. So in this setting, it's not a problem at all. But ultimately, we would like to provide services where you can run indefinitely, and if you commit to share some resources, you should share them, and we cannot enforce it. So this may be an issue, and we're definitely going to use reputation in terms of making sure that the best providers are chosen for this long persistent tasks, and maybe other tasks with, classes and ways of dealing with them can be added in Golem, and we believe that this marketplace will allow it. So as it is a small issue in terms of making sure that the right amount of resources is shared, it's not a very big issue to us. The most important part is that SGX allows you to verify the computation, and we have to use additional means just to make sure that if you use SGX, you simply use it at the best.
Cool. Do we have another question from the chat room?
Yes, so like one of our users is asking whether, or actually why do we want to develop both Brass and Clay at the same time?
Okay, so developing Brass and Clay at the same time? Well, it makes sense because Brass is more or less a production solution on mainnet. It still requires quite a lot of UX tweaks and improvements, but it works. It can be used to do Blender rendering, and other production-grade integration is going to be integrated with Brass on mainnet. At the same time, Clay is going to solve some problems that need additional testing, that need additional iterations. And only once we are sure that those problems are solved and that the software is stable, they are going to be merged with the Brass line, branch. So this is why we use those two branches. Clay branch is going to be used to develop new features, and Brass is this mainnet release that's going to be all the time mainnet production ready release where only tested and well-working features are added.
Cool. Another one from Decker 3D. Will GPU computing take place in the secure enclave within SGX Graphene NG? Are there any serious issues with GPU with SGX presented?
Okay, seems another for me. So the point here is that SGX enclaves are used with CPU only, and there is no technology, no hardware solution for GPUs right now. So there is a problem with running Graphene NG with GPUs, that it is simply impossible, and it makes no point. But we can run computation within SGX and call the GPU from inside the enclave via this equal and occult mechanism. And as we cannot make sure, even though we cannot make sure that the GPU computations are valid, still this SGX part gives us another notion, well, improves on the notion of trust, bless you, of this computation. So serious issues are that there is no Graphene NG nor SGX for GPUs, but we know how to connect those two technologies and how to use GPUs with SGX.
Okay, unfortunately we ran out of time, and it's been almost an hour of us talking, and it's a lot of information to process in the following weeks and months. Really. We will be providing detailed information where necessary or required. We can also answer your questions via chat and Reddit, and we have an AMA at the end of the month that's not subject to change. It's historical, and we'll do it as well. So you can expect more technical updates along the way. Keep in mind that the process for the team like reformation has already started, and we're working on this new agile setup to reach the defined goals. So we have already gathered a substantial amount of interesting technical data to share with you. Again, in the next months, we're going to continue publishing material of already rolling stuff, such as the series on trusted computation. So thank you so much for bearing with us, and thank you so much for your support. And yeah, see you next time. Bye. Say bye, guys.
Thank you.
You're very well trained.
Okay.